Hello, everybody. My name is Rafael Chacín, as known as El Capitán Rafucho, and welcome to another episode of Rafucho's Corner, which is a space that we're talking about the most important things. It's just like an interview about athletes, professionals, artists, including influencers and content creators. Now, you might know because right now it is midnight at the East Coast of the United States, but for right now it's 9 p.m. at the Pacific Coast in the United States. And somehow, because right now, over the last few episodes that I just got it, there's nothing more important about the mixed martial arts, boxing, and the combat sports. So right now, I got a special guest right now. So you might know for the case side press, and of course all these videos, and of course all these all these blogs that are coming out for the world of combat sports. So I just wanted to receive a proper welcome to Mr. Eddie Lowe. So how's it going, Eddie Lowe?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
I'm definitely good. I'm definitely good. So right now, let's start with the first topic. And I know it's very interesting because we had some breaking news right now. So at the UFC, they just dropped another breaking news. So they just got important fights to close out to the year. And what are these? It's gonna be like for a title between Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. Now, I know for a fact because they call me kind of crazy because I know for a fact because the last time we just saw Colby Covington, it's just like at a few months ago. But right now, he feels like he was born ready to take off the title of Leon Edwards because right now it seems that they are opening to a brand new era at the UFC because after Sean O'Malley just won Aljamain Sterling for a knockout at Boston, and he just became the champion. And of course, after Sean Strickland just beat Israel Sindaya for the title a few weeks ago. But right now, it feels like if Colby Covington could be Leon Edwards, I mean, that could be shocking, and it gives like the momentum to open a new era at the UFC. So, do you have any thoughts, like the early thoughts about the breaking news or what's happening at the UFC to close it up the year between Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards for that title?
Here's the funny thing about everything you just said is that the one consistent fighter out of all those champions you named and all the belts that have changed, Jon Jones is still champion. You know what I mean? There was that famous picture way back in the day with Cain Velasquez, Frankie Edgar, and all those guys. Like they're all gone. Most of those guys are retired, and you still have Jon Jones with a belt. That's nuts to even think about. But as far as Colby Covington and Leon Edwards, it's a fight we expected. I was kind of hoping for something different. Um, I don't dislike Colby Covington at all. I think he's important for the sport and all that. Even his like character that gets stale and old after a while, but people like it. Even that to me is like refreshing for the sport. So they announced that fight, and I was just kind of like, I could have done almost any other fight. I would have been cool with the Usman trilogy, even though he doesn't really deserve it. Obviously he's 0-2, or what is he, 1-2 or whatever. But I mean, look at it this way: Kobe's been out for over a year, so a lot of people are going to be like, "Oh, Kobe's going to wrestle him, take him down, all that." Leon's been active that entire time. He's been fighting, he's been training, he's been going. So I don't think it's going to be as easy as a lot of people think. I would still pick Leon Edwards to retain his title, probably by decision. But you never know, man. Kobe Covington's a dog, dude. He is a dog. And that card, I think the co-main events, Brandon, that's 296. That's Brandon Royval and Alejandro Pantoja, Alexander Pantoja. That's gonna be a crazy card, man, for real.
Yeah, that's exactly. But I mean, if they got Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards, I mean,
Yeah.
he's gonna defend the title at the UFC 296, which is on December 16th, which is like an early Christmas present because at over the last two weeks at about the end of the year, I mean, they could be happening at all. I mean, Leon Edwards, we're gonna defend this welterweight title against Colby Covington at the main event. Is gonna be in Las Vegas. So now Edwards has ranked number 4 at the world pound by pound rankings, and Edwards is ranked at the number 1. The Covington is ranked 2 in the activity. I mean, if Edwards is coming back for the off to back win over former pound of Kamaru Usman, was his the majority decision at the UFC 280 in March. But I mean, Covington has no fought since an anonymous decision over Jorge Masvidal back in March of
Mhm.
2020. I mean, both title fights, he's a former interim with the championship. I mean, if you had the guys with Pantoja, Brando Moreno, I mean, this could be like that happen for like, I guess this could be like the most exciting event to end in 2023, which is marked for a new era.
Mhm. It could be. It definitely could be the most exciting card. The only reason I won't go that far as to actually like say that is because every time we see cards that are like huge cards, we're like, oh, it's gonna be the best card of the year, it's gonna be a banger and all that stuff. And those are the cards that usually don't deliver. Those are the cards that usually we're watching and we're just like, this sucked, right? Or it wasn't worth the $80, $90, whatever the UFC is charging these days. It's usually the cards that aren't expected to do well that do great. But if you're talking about on paper, oh, that card looks amazing. End of the year for the UFC, or last pay-per-view of the year for the UFC, in Las Vegas with a great co-main event. I'm more excited for the co-main event than I am the main event. But no, you're right, absolutely right. It's a great, it's like you said, nice little early Christmas present for us.
Yeah, that's exactly. And of course, we're just moving on for the second topic right now because I just heard about the after the event between Jon Jones versus Steve Miocic. I mean, there is rumors that it could be like the last fight of Jon Jones because he's possibly hitting about his retirement and after his fight against Steve Miocic. And of course, we just see like a rumors coming up because if Jon Jones is gonna be the last year at the UFC, then or maybe it's gonna be like at a comeback. But I think he has an amazing career over the last 50 years at the making of the UFC, and he's done for like for like everything. I mean, this guy is one of the greatest heavyweight championship of all time at the UFC story. I mean, he could be having like this one, but not only Jon Jones is gonna be planning to like a retirement, but also there is another athlete at the UFC that he wants to be like a return, which is Paul Fielder, and he wants to end at a brief retirement for the UFC 300 return. I mean, he's still working in the commentary capacity because following back-to-back losses against Rafael dos Anjos back in 2020. I mean, he openly began to discuss a retirement, but he announced it, his retirement is kind of fighting. But in that 2 years of retirement, he's close enough for a return. So, do you think that about the Paul Feeders coming back for one more fight, and John Jones is gonna be close enough for an ending about this last year at the UFC?
I don't think we'll see Paul Felder fight. I think he gets the same itch we all do, right? Like I haven't fought in years, and I'll watch a really good fight, and whether it's UFC or PFL or Belt or wherever, right? Or even the local scenes. I see a really good fight, I'll get the itch too, and I'm like, oh, I'm ready. I feel good. My body's not busted up, but Felder's been training, but he's not training 2 times a day like these, like the active athletes are, right? So I think a lot of it has to do with him just, kind of getting the itch to come back. And so he even said to himself, he's like, nothing's guaranteed, right? He said, I'm back in the testing pool. I'm training great, but he's not going to be the, I don't think he's coming back. And honestly, if I'm him, I don't either. I just stick to being an analyst, being happy with it. But, it's, sometimes when that itch comes and it's real strong, you got to scratch it. As far as Jon Jones, man, what else is left? What else does he have to prove, right? If he takes out Stipe Miocic, we already lost that Francis Ngannou fight, right? We're never gonna get that. Jon Jones ain't going to PFL, and Francis ain't never coming back to UFC. That's just not gonna happen. So I think Jon Jones is gonna. What I think is gonna happen? Jon Jones knocks out Stipe, beats the greatest heavyweight of all time, becomes the greatest heavyweight of all time, cements himself as the greatest combat sports athlete of all time, at least in MMA, but arguably overall, and then goes on to the sunset. What I do think happens is Jon Jones takes a year off, maybe less, and then he's gonna box. I'm calling it now. I think he boxes. I think the Tyson Fury offer was too much. Probably entice him a little bit. I think possibly getting the fight with Francis Ngannou in boxing is excuse me, attractive to him. So I think we'll see Jon Jones retire. I think we can see him go off to boxing. And please, Paul Felder, don't come back, man. Just let it go. Let it go. I don't want to see. I like Paul Felder a lot, dude. I don't want to see Paul Felder get beat up. Like you ever heard the term? Everything, whatever the sport pass you by. Paul, the sport passed you by, my guy. You've been watching it every weekend. You call the action. You know what I'm talking about. Please let it go. I love Paul Felder. Please don't get beat up, dude. Do not come back, please.
Yeah, I don't know, but because we just had an offer like because it's time to create the opening for like a young prospects, including
Mm-hmm.
because I love the idea that they just gonna put on the program at the ESPN Plus about Dana White Contender Series because we just see like a young prospects coming out for the MMA, and of course
Mm-hmm.
they just wanted to try it out the UFC because before the Contender Series there's the Ultimate Fighter, and they have the opportunity to make it to the UFC to have his who's gonna be and who's not gonna be. So it's kind of like at a training camp to see who's be able to do like it as something. Because I know this is not gonna be easy at all because there's a lot of it training. There's gonna be like a lot of running, like a lot of punches and a lot of practicing out the gym, and it all happens because like, we just see like a fewer talents right now because at the early 2000s we just saw like Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture. Also, we just see Nate Diaz from the Ultimate Fighter. Also, in the 2011, we just see it of the last year. Also, we just see it like the prime time of Anderson Silva. They had Damian
Mm-hmm.
Cormier at this time. Michael Bisping, Delonte, he lost his eye because right now he's just replaced for the. And right now he's been doing the commentary. Also, Khabib not going to do him up Conor McGregor. But I think this decade of 2020, it perhaps the decade that all begins for the new era, the new era from Sean Sugar Miley, Covington, and also Alexander Volkanovski, or Sean Strickland. I mean, all these athletes, they just in the ball because we just see like greatest generations in the MMA. And I'm very glad that UFC is just training out for 30 years since November
Mm-hmm.
1993, since the first event. And it, it was like a game changer, even though they're just trying to ban it or everything about it. So, I mean, they still can strong because it's all about the sports entertainment, and of course, it's all about the passion of the fans, and
Mm-hmm.
also it's just like an emotion for all these fans that we just love to see that all these fights at the MMA, even we can pay on pay per view. So we cannot hate because right now the passion of the UFC is getting involved with it, and it's been like in the mainstream for over years.
Mm-hmm. It's mainstream over years, and they just made that deal with WWE, dude. Like they became TKO. I mean, you know about that, right? They merged under the same company, all that. They're under TKO. Um, you gotta be impressed with the fact that they came out of not out of nowhere, right? But they were. I mean, they were in Dothan, Alabama for some of their first events, right? Because no other states would, would legalize the rule set, right? MMA was thought of as human cockfighting, all that kind of thing. So to go from that to 30 years later, where we're at now, where it's not only mainstream, it's every single weekend. Every single weekend, dude. When's the last time you saw Bellator every single weekend? Never. The answer is never. PFL? Never. WEC? Tried. Not happening. Affliction, so many other promotions that did not end up mainstream the way UFC does. You got to give credit to the way the Fertitta brothers and Dana White, did business, right? So as far as like the era of combat sports now, like it's fun. It's fun to see how the eras change. Like you said, the Chuck Liddell era. I mean, we started out with Hoist Gracie, then Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture, Tito Ortiz. As funny as he is, and as much as we like to laugh about him and everything, the guy was still part of history. To the Anderson Silvas, GSP, Frankie Edgars, Benson Hendersons, Nate Diaz, obviously still relevant and all that. So, like you said, these days, Sean O'Malley, Conor McGregor's still hanging on by a thread ish. If he ever actually fights, he might actually, get back into the mainstream and all that. But again, I mean, that brings me back to Jon Jones, man. That guy transcended eras, right? He started off super young, became champion super young, and he's still champion. I don't even know how many years. It's over 10 years of being a champion. I think I haven't done the math yet, but you know how it is, man.
Yeah, I know for a fact because it's all about the changing right now. So let's move on to the next topic right now because it seems that it's getting out of control right now because if
Mm.
you're a video gamer and of course if you love the martial arts, then you just have it like You just have the play of all these characters in the UFC 4, UFC 5, because right now it seems like they have it seems that do you put it seems that when you put like a cup when you put an athlete like Alexander Volkanovski and Jorge Masvidal or even Conor McGregor and Israel Zendaya at the cover of the video game at UFC 4, 3, 2, or 1, it seems that they just lost the titles. And it seems like it's gonna be like a curse and everything because after they just dropped the official cover for that video game, it seems that boom, they just stripped out for the titles, and it seems like the cover of the EA Sports UFC, it seems like it's been like curse. I mean, it happens to all the athletes because when you put like for example, Josh Allen the cover at the made in 24, boom, they just lost it. I mean,
Yeah.
anything could happen like so, and it does it about it being like a the curse, and of course, we are your thoughts. I mean, can you explain that about the thoughts? It can put any athlete at the UFC being cursed or they putting off for the cover after being stripped for the title.
Wait, who got stripped of the title?
I mean, for example, Israel Zendaya just lost the title
Oh, I
because
lost
they
the
just
title.
got the
Got
title.
it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I got you. I got you. No, so yeah, it's funny because as you were describing that, I immediately thought of the Madden curse, right? Like I said, Josh Allen. Um, but I don't know if you remember back in the day, Peyton Hillis, something like that. But I think Peyton Hillis was a running back for the Cleveland Browns. That year, EA messed up and they said, "Hey, fans, you can vote for the cover." Of course, we all started clowning. We're like, okay, we'll vote in the running back of the Cleveland Browns that nobody knows or cares about, and they voted in Peyton Hillis. Mind you, he had a decent year that year. I mean, he was surprising a lot of people, but he didn't have like an All Pro year. It wasn't an MVP year. He didn't win no Super Bowl, right? He gets on the on the cover, and we all get a nice good laugh out of it. We forced EA to put him on the Madden cover, and then he tanks hard, right? Josh Allen just did it. Um, we haven't seen too many athletes get on the Madden cover and not lose like pretty bad or have a kind of like a down year. If I was an athlete, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I don't need that cover. Man. I'm good. So we were looking at fighters. I mean, Valentina, I think Valentina Shevchenko was either on the cover or she was like on the trailer for it or something. And we just saw what happened to her. She got 10-8 in the fifth round the way she did. So dude, I don't want that cover, man. If I'm a fighter, I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. Just give me a 50K bonus. You can keep the video game, dog. I don't need to be on that thing.
Yeah, because it seems that when you put like a cover an athlete, because every time that we see like athletes at the UFC, because first when Ronda Rousey went to cover at the UFC 2, she was knocked down by Nunes at the 48 seconds. And then when you got Conor McGregor at the cover of the UFC 3, he choked out by Khabib in the next fight. And then last but not least, they got Masvidal. They just knocked out by Cole Usman the next fight. And the Sanchez just went 1-0 and then lost to Blachowicz right after that fight. I mean, it seems that the curse is hard to ignore because after the grazing of the UFC 4 in 2020, I mean,
Yeah.
they just came like it up very different, but it seems that it never gets old, but it never gets like it seems like it's kind of hard to beat. It's kind of hard to beat.
I wonder if it's because the game sucks. The game's terrible. All right, let's be honest. The game is trash. Like, dude, the mechanics are trash. I mean, I don't know if you saw the trailer for the new one. It looks like UFC 4 with slightly better graphics, and not even better. Go to Max Holloway's Twitter and scroll down a little bit. I think yesterday, the day before, he put up a picture of himself next to the UFC 5, like Max Holloway, and he's like, "What the hell, dude? This ain't me." Like, yeah, it was clearly trash, right? So the game sucks. EA, if you can hear me, the game's terrible. All right, change it up. Please sell the franchise to 2K, who actually does video games better. All right, I'll say it. I don't care. And maybe we'll end up that. Maybe when the game gets good, the curse will end. Never know.
Yeah. I mean, because for that time, because I just see the image of Matt Holloway in real life and the UFC fight. That was because we're gonna share the screen right now. I mean,
Yeah.
there's somebody. Holy snap! I mean, I
Bro.
mean, I don't know what's happening because it seems like because I don't know what's happening because the graphic design it doesn't look like it improve about it because I know that I'm a video gamer, but it seems like they don't have like a
Bro.
polish embedded. It's something that I just oh my god! And it seems that they have a repost of Daniel comment to see the real Mets. It's on the left, and what did you see it to say? I don't know
Yeah.
what the other got deleted. I was just like, oh my goodness. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it seems like the first I thought when I just saw the first image, there ain't no way to get the athlete that streams that bad. I was like, holy snap.
It's terrible,
But
man. I tell you what, video game Max Holloway looks like one of my cousins from East Los Angeles. Okay, that's what that guy looks like. I saw it and I sent it to my cousin. I was like, hey man, you get on the video game? He goes, like, holy shit, they think I'm Max. I'm like, nah, bro, they messed up. That's what happened. They messed up.
yeah. But let's move on to another topic right now. So I just figured out that Alexander Volkanovski he wants like a rematch. I mean, after he was doing something great, and
Yeah,
I was something shocked because I was doing like an interview, and then they just figured it out that I was. They just went out to a rematch, and they just went out to wait it about it. So I mean, when it comes to Alexander Volkanovski, he wants like a real rematch, but he had to wait until the UFC of when it comes to October in Saudi Arabia and where it comes because I know for a fact that Alexander Volkanovski he's like one of these terrible champions and he got the best IQ. I mean that guy he doesn't stop right now. So and I believe that Alexander Volkanovski can do anything about it. But he's like a 100% unbeatable. But I think he needs to go to wait another fight to see because it's really possible to see like a rematch. So I know that Alexander Volkanovski he can really fight like a rematch. He can tell away through the schedule. So I at the UFC 290, 294, which is on Saudi Arabia, between Charles Rivera versus Islam Bashukabid. I mean, this could be happening. So, I mean, when both the guys with Islam Bashukabid is gonna win against Charles Rivera, then he gonna face in a rematch at Alexander Volkanovski. So, any thoughts about that?
yeah. Look, we got to see what happens with Charles and Islam, right? It's hard to say that Charles would beat Islam Makhachev because Islam's just he's that kind of a tough guy. But there's a solid chance, honestly, that Charles wins that fight. But let's just say Islam wins that fight. He doesn't fight very often at all. I mean, he talks like he wants to fight. Oh yeah, give me this guy, give me that guy. He wants everybody, but he doesn't actually fight anybody. He fights every once in a blue moon. So that gives Volkanovski time to fight. And I mean, the guy everyone's talking about is Ilia Tupuria, right? The Spaniard, yeah, Spaniard. So he Tupuria wants that fight. I want to see that fight. I think Volkanovski would do well in that to prove a few things in that fight. So I think Volkanovski will fight one more time, and then let's say Islam wins, you can make that rematch because that fight was close. That fight was real close in my opinion. So, yeah, man, I think we see the rematch at some point. As far as Volkanovski being like smart, like not nobody, but very few fighters we've seen have an IQ like that to where not only does he say and do, right? He says, I want, let's say he fights, let's say he fights a striker and it's like they consider the best striker at featherweight. He'll be like, I'm gonna stand with him. I'm gonna beat him at their own game. And then he does it, right? So he's super smart, incredibly tough. You gotta look, this guy comes from rugby. I don't know if you've seen pictures of him when he was playing rugby, but he was like 250 pounds, 240 pounds. He's a big guy. But those rugby guys are tough as hell. They're tougher than football players all day. So, Volkanovski's he's a once he doesn't get all the respect that he deserves yet because a lot of people still don't like him for whatever reason. But I'll tell you what, I was at 263 or 66 when Volkanovski fought Brian Ortega, and Brian Ortega got him in that triangle. Nobody gets out of that triangle or the guillotine, whatever it was. But nobody gets out of that. Not from Brian Ortega, and he got out of that. I was seeing that live to me was nuts. So, now I want to see the rematch, man. I want to see Volkanovski is on for the rematch. If Volkanovski wins that fight, he leaves featherweight and we move on. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of fights for Volkanovski to make, which is funny to say because there's not that many interesting fights for Islam at 155. There's just not, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we just have like the two more topics to about the interview. So after the Noche UFC between Alex Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about it. So between the Noche UFC of Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, everybody
Mhm.
thought that Valentina Shevchenko could retain the title or Alexa Grasso could steal the champion. But the decision of the judges, just like, oh my goodness, he couldn't believe it. Because I remember that I was watching the whole fight between Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko, the second part. I really thought that Valentina Shevchenko could early win that title, but Alexa Grasso just steal the champion. But the other decisions, that was just like a split decision that I was like, oh my God, what the heck was he
Mhm.
just watching? So, getting any thoughts about the reaction about Alyssa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko? It sounds like it too fair to. Is it fair to Valentina Shevchenko to have this title right now, or they say Alexa Grasso could have anything more?
So all right, so the way that fight went down, it was very close, but I thought Valentina was gonna win that fight. The reason, obviously, Mike Bell, the judge, gave Alexa Grasso a 10-8, and I'll say this because a lot of people were bad mouthing him right off the bat. Mike Bell is easily one of the better judges out there, right? You rarely hear his name. You know why you rarely hear his name? Because he really screws up. He almost always gets it right? So he's a very fair judge. It's just one of those things that it just happens, man. Sometimes you just have a like an off day or whatever at work, and he gave a score I don't think it deserved either. I don't think that was a 10-8 round for Alexa. Um, Unfortunately, it went the way it did and went split draw, and Alexa retained with no winner in that fight. So um, obviously, the fair thing to do is to give Valentina the trilogy, right? Get to do the fight again. Now, as far as fair goes, when it comes to UFC titles, we got to throw that word fair and the word deserved out the window. We haven't had a deserved title shot in a long time, and we haven't had a fair outcome in a lot of people's eyes in a while, right? Like unless you finish the fight and get the title that way, or you're dominant like Strickland just was over at Adesanya. It's tough to even throw deserved or is that unfair or whatever as far as Valentina. Now the one thing I will say about Valentina is I have never not never but I haven't seen someone be so sour about losing. Like she lost the belt, and the first thing wasn't, oh, the judge gave her a 10-8. It wasn't, oh, I should have gotten that 10-8 or I should have gotten that 10-9, whatever. It was, oh, I lost because it was Mexican Independence Day. Like, if there was one thing you could not have said, you could have said anything else, but you threw that out, which makes you look stupid. So a lot of people are kind of, anti Shevchenko. I'm not, but a lot of people are anti Bullet because of that. So, it is what it is. But we get past that whole thing as far as the fight just by itself goes. Um, I was leaning Bullet after the fight. Mind you, I'm an Alexa Grasso fan. She's from my hometown. So I'm not, I was rooting for her. I picked her and everything. But even at the end, I was like, nah, dude, that's it. Bullet got her the title back. And when it went to draw, I couldn't believe it either. So, it's MMA, dude. That's what we're not in boxing. Because in boxing, if something like this happens, rigged. Right? We all start yelling out, throwing out that rigged word and all that. And this one, it was just a screw up by Mike Bell. And I don't know if you heard, but right after like soon after the event, they actually had a seminar with with a lot of judges, to go over what a 10-8 actually means. So they at least did something, or at least are trying to do something to to solve the issue. But yeah, it was a wild night, man. Overall, though, the card was great. Much of UFC should be a yearly thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know for that because I really thought that Valentina Shevchenko could handle this one. But okay, so let's move on to the last topic. And I know you guys are a bit into MMA at the UFC. So right now, the last topic, and I just wanted to talk about it. So right
Mhm.
now, the UFC has 30 years. It has been like a game changer for all those years at the mixed martial arts because they're gonna brought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they got Valetudo, Muay Thai, all this kind of stuff like that. So what was the moment that you just saw that it really changed the whole history at the UFC. It's like a it's like, for example, like a fight or a pay-per-view or a moment that you saw in your eyes that you completely change your whole perspective to see the mixed martial arts.
Well, okay, if you're asking when I started watching MMA, is that what you're saying, or are you asking about UFC specifically?
Yeah, specifically
Okay,
for UFC.
okay. To me, first of all, I started watching UFC way back in the day too. So it's like everyone has the same story, man. I'm not gonna bore you with it. I was watching this. I got the tape from Blockbuster, all that shit. Everyone's got the same story. I ain't gonna bore you with that. What I will say is this: the UFC changed for me forever when they sold it to Endeavor. When they sold it to, Ari Emanuel became basically CEO of the whole thing and whatnot. When the Fertitta brothers got out, they sold Dana White. I forgot how much he gained out of that. He got a bunch of money out of that. But when they sold, I wish I could go back on my Twitter and find the tweet, but it's obviously been years and thousands of tweets. But I did tweet out the day they sold. I said, "Hey, you guys can forget about deserved title shots. You guys can forget about earned. It's money time. It's about money now. When's the last like we rarely get a pay-per-view without a title as a main event, right? I mean, they made and I went to 291. I covered it for Case Press, but I went to see Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, right? And it was a main event. What did they do? They threw the BMF belt in there for no reason. You didn't need it. That fight was badass on its own, but they threw a belt in there because they needed a belt in the main event. I think the last time that I can remember a main event with no title on the line, I want to say, was it Dustin Poirier or Conor McGregor, or was it no, Nate and Tony Ferguson, right? Like, we rarely get pay-per-views without belts on them, right? And it's because it's about money now, right? Everyone's talking about Endeavor gotta make a payment for the for the UFC. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But this game is now money driven. Okay, it is not sport driven. It is not earned or deserved or anything. Even fans get into it, dude. You ever talk to somebody and be like, "Hey man, what do you think about this title fight?" Oh well, it doesn't sell pay-per-views. I don't give a shit. If I'm sitting at home watching the fights, I could care less how many pay-per-views it went. In fact, I almost hope it made no money. Okay, like I would go that far. I would go as far as to be like, I hope it makes no money because I'm sick of why are we paying $90 for a freaking pay-per-view? All right, way back it used to be like what, $50 maybe less, right? Like, and when they first started doing pay-per-views where you could actually not have to get a tape, and you could actually watch it on TV, it was like $30, dude. Okay, now we're up to $80, $90, and most of these cards aren't really worth it. Like $294, $295, worth it. $296, on its way there, right? But we get so many cards that are not worth the $86, whatever it is, plus ESPN Plus that you got to pay a month, which is now $10 or $11. Like, forget it. But it's all money, dude. It's all about money now. Like, the purity of the sport, all this other crap everyone wants to throw around. It's how to find out the toughest person. No, it's not. No, it is not. Leon Edwards was, for example, Leon Edwards was Colby Covington's going to sell. Why? Because Colby talks a lot of trash. A lot of trash. Okay? Does not matter how the fight goes. People are going to tune in and watch Colby Covington. Sean O'Malley against, who did you just knock out for the title? Jesus Christ. Remind me, will you? 292? My mind is like blanking. Who's bantamweight title champion? Who did Sean O'Malley just beat?
I mean, there's a lot of
Aljamain Sterling.
yeah, Aljamain.
Yeah, Aljamain Sterling. Who sold that pay-per-view? Sean O'Malley. Okay. So on and so forth. Conor McGregor is the ultimate pay-per-view salesman. So it's just weird. It's been a weird thing to see. The UFC sells to Endeavor. It all becomes about money, and even the fans get into it. You ever? I don't know if you're a big Conor fan or not, but you ever? I make Conor jokes every once in a while. You know, the number one response I get is, "Oh, he's got more money than you," and I'm sitting here going like, "That's not at all what we're talking about." Not to mention, why are you over here defending the man's wallet? Are you getting a Conor McGregor check in your mail every week? No, relax. Okay, so it's become weird. I'll say that much. I still enjoy it. I still love the sport. I still train and do everything, and I cover it every day and everything. But man, it's been a weird ride from the sale of the UFC to Endeavor to now, and now we're mixing it with the WWE. So now it's gonna get even crazier.
Yeah, I don't know about that because at that time that I was growing up watching UFC, and Also, that was like at a younger age, that I was 12 years old, and my dad
Mhm.
and I were just watching The Ultimate Fighter. Then we just see it like at a young prospect, and then when I was growing up in Venezuela, we didn't have enough money to pay some of the UFC events pay-per-view. So what we're going to
Mhm.
do now, because we're just hanging out for the club and we just see like at a big screens to put it down for all these matches, because we don't have enough money to pay like a pay-per-view for UFC, but we're gonna do about now. So we just hit it out for the clubs, just like a sport bar to see of all these matches right now. So it's very different about right now. So it became like a game changer for the UFC during all these 30 years. And I mean, what can I say about it? The whole history, it's completely insane, because we're just growing watching all these UFC athletes that just made history, and they will talk it
Mhm.
about for years.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. I mean, now we got influencers that get brought in to do coverage and all that. Yeah, I forgot the young lady's name who interviewed Sean Strick. I don't know if you saw the interview, but he was talking about how she had to sleep with to get the interview and all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm sitting there going like, man, she has no idea what she's gotten into. But the UFC is trying to evolve to the younger audiences, and it's a smart play, man. I mean, look, for example, I'll give you Jake Paul, for example. I went to Jake Paul Anderson Silva, right, as media. I went and I covered it. Um, the way UFC pay-per-views work and Bellators and all that is after the fight ends, the winner goes to the back and talks to the media just right away, right? Throughout the whole night. In boxing, the whole event happens and then fighters come to the media room and talk to reporters. So we got to sit up at this balcony up high at it's called Diamond Desert Arena here in Glendale, in Glendale, Arizona, but literally like 40 minutes from where I am. And anyway, I was up there for the entire event, and you look down and it was mostly kids with like fake gold chains and backwards hats and all these Jake Paul fans that remembered him from Disney and from all the other crap he did on YouTube, right? All the stupid stuff. So if you look now at the way the UFC is getting marketed, it's marketed to a younger audience. No, it's not marketed to children, definitely not. But we're talking like TikTok, TikTok videos and Instagram reels and all that's going everywhere.
Mm.
It's all in an effort to pull the younger audience, right? Like I said, not children, but you're looking at trying to get high schoolers into it, right? That way, where they become adults, they get jobs, they can buy pay-per-views, and so on and so forth. If you look at Jake Paul, his audience is aging out and nobody cares anymore. Okay. Like no one cares about a Jake Paul fight anymore, man. They had to bring in Nate Diaz to bring in viewers, right? Um, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know who, for example, Jake Paul fights next, but no one's gonna care unless it's a big name. So it's the game of dollars, dude. It's the game of dollars to bring everybody else in, and as impressive as this run has been for the UFC, and I'm not shitting on it whatsoever. Like I'm giving the UFC a ton of credit for what they've done for the sport and for themselves, and making it a viable career for some as far as fighting goes. It's been very impressive, absolutely very impressive, and it's one of those things where you're sitting back going, all right, cool. Dana's what, like 54, I think. Dana's like 54. I don't know if he goes to 60 and keeps going. Let's say he doesn't. Let's say in 6 years he's out, right? And Hunter Campbell comes back in. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the UFC with somebody else at the wheel. So, um, yeah, man, it's been a wild ride, and it's been a very quick ride. If we think about it, 30 years is not a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And I was completely blown my mind, because we just growing up watching UFC, and that time things are really changing about the history. And I just wanted to say that thank you, Eddie, a lot to allow it this incredible interview of Rafucho's Corner. So where can we find you at the social media and everything, the YouTube channel?
At Cage Side Press for everything. At Cage Side Press for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everything. YouTube, just look up Cage Side Press. And my Twitter is at Elaw32. It's ELAW32. Hit me up. I'm cool with everybody, man. So appreciate
Yep.
you having me on, though.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Of course, it's been like another episode of Rafucho's Corner. I'm your host, Rafael Chacín, as known as El Capitán Rafucho, and I will see you there in its time. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Rafael Chacín on YouTube. You can tap Rafael Chacín on YouTube, and then there's live streams, videos, reactions, everything. You can follow me on every social media like Twitter, Instagram at Capitán Rafucho, and you can see all these videos and photos that I just posted. And I just wanted to say thank you, everybody. Much love and respect from the Capitán Rafucho. So I will see you there at the next time, at the next episode of Rafucho's Corner. So salute and peace out. Let's go.